Today we're going to discuss why both Michael and Trevor were wrong in GTA 5. Now, of course, if they were both right, we wouldn't have that interesting of a story and conflict now, would we? But I'm a fucking nerd and I can't help myself, and as such I like overanalyzing shit. So let's start with Michael. So Michael, sometime in 2003 or 2004 probably, was certain that he wanted to get out of the game. At this point, he had just spent the last 15 or 16 years robbing and doing God knows what. Not only did he at this point have a shit ton of money, but he also had a family to look after, all while tensions are rising in his crew. He decided that, considering his current situation and the people that he surrounded himself with, the best decision is for him to set them up. Everyone except for Lester. Of course, he was mostly scared of Trevor, so therefore in his mind, he was like, I can't just set this fucker up to go to jail, I have to permanently get rid of him. Brad wasn't that big of a threat, so he could just go to prison, but Trevor had to go because Michael thought that if he didn't, he would someday somehow come back and kill him and his entire family. But anyways, Michael was wrong. First, before the prologue, because it seems like he didn't even once mention to Trevor that he just wanted to get out of the game. That's not to say that we as the player don't necessarily understand why he never tried to talk to Trevor about the whole thing, because I mean, it's Trevor, am I right? But yeah, his first mistake was never actually trying to communicate with Trevor, and while the chance may be slim, it could be, considering how protective Trevor was of Michael's kids and his family overall, that he would have understood why Michael couldn't live that way anymore. And you want to know what's kind of funny in this whole scenario? It's mentioned by Trevor during the mission Friends United that him and Brad were considering cutting ties with Michael to go off on their own, so I don't think that that reality was too far off, but sadly Michael's mistake was that he probably never actually brought it to Trevor and tried to talk to him directly about it. Now on to Michael's second mistake, and this is in regards to how Michael handled things when him and Trevor reunited years later, or after they reunited. Specifically during the mission Bury the Hatchet. Michael tried to play extremely dumb, and of course Trevor didn't buy that, but I do think that if in that moment during the argument at Michael's house, Michael could have just told the truth, and one could argue that things would have turned out the same regardless if Michael laid everything out for Trevor. But I would say that you're partially right, because if things went that way, Michael and Trevor wouldn't have had that whole scene of them almost killing each other at that cemetery in Ludendorff, and most importantly, Michael would have never gotten kidnapped by the Chinese. And if that was the case, I do think that the conflict could have been resolved much easier, much quicker and whatnot. But I'm actually glad that things went that way, as it created my favorite scene in the entire game. But what Michael's second mistake comes down to sum up, is him simply underestimating Trevor, and also him lying to Trevor's face multiple times certainly was not something that helped him out. And to sum up Michael's whole part of this video, his first mistake was that he didn't put enough trust in Trevor, although we do understand why. And his second mistake was after the reunion, and it was a combination of him lying literally anytime Brad is mentioned, while also playing dumb to the point where no one, let alone Trevor, who's not an idiot, would believe his bullshit. Also, real quick, if you're enjoying this video right now, please leave a like on it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, make sure to check out my channel memberships, as well as my second channel. That's where the Kingdom Hearts content is nowadays, and all of that is going to be in the description. Now let's move on to Trevor. So Trevor's first big mistake before the prologue was, like he himself said, he was constantly pushing Michael to stay in the game, while knowing damn well that Michael had a family to not only provide for, but also look after, and he was at this point clearly concerned for not only his own, but their safety too. And Trevor constantly being on his ass and pushing him to stay in that dangerous lifestyle just was not helping the situation. And it was exactly the reason that Michael felt like he could never go up to Trevor and be open with him about wanting to leave the game. And that's also why Michael decided to take some drastic measures that he felt like he had no choice but to take in order to protect himself and his family and give them all a safer environment. Trevor's second mistake, just like Michael's, is after their reunion, and this one is pretty cut and dry, and that's his reaction when he finds out the truth. Hell, even Trevor himself acknowledges this and is self-aware enough. He says to Michael during a hangout, and I quote, "So Mike, I should probably say, well, maybe I shouldn't have reacted the way I did." And it's at this exact point that I think that both characters realized their mistakes, with Michael even apologizing to Trevor, ultimately finally ending that conflict and allowing the two to move on as friends once again. This also leads me to the end of this video, and what I presume to be the main moral lesson in GTA 5's story, and that lesson would be to never give up on your friends, especially when you know that they would never give up on you. That sounded way too too cheesy for my taste, but you know what? Fuck it, I'm leaving it in. And with that said, I want to thank you for watching this video. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Always love to read them and reply to them. Until next video stream, bye bye.